Really warm welcome to everybody, and welcome back, Liz. Thank you so much for joining us again and for sharing your experience with us again. So those of you who've listened to the previous podcast or watched the previous video, Liz was talking about where mindfulness is in Wales, particularly within education, the impact that it's having, the new curriculum, and what's enabled mindfulness to become really already quite well established in Wales and in Welsh education. And she's also now come back, and she's going to talk to us a bit about where we go from here. I wonder whether you might just say a little bit, just to maybe recap about what the ingredients are that have enabled mindfulness to become part of the curriculum.
I think an opening in terms of the acceptance of the importance of well-being. Just that there's something about sanction and what people value, even down to what the inspectorate is going to look at when it comes in there. And I think that's growing probably everywhere, that recognition. So much of the science is pointing towards that there, but just an acceptance that actually it's okay to give some time to children's well-being and to staff well-being. It doesn't all have to be content related. This is about how we interact. This is about relationships with each other and the world. And I think that's a huge opening, that growing realization that there is much more to life there. So that's one of the openings. The other is actually about what are we educating for? And lots of people are questioning this, that some of the traditional education forms that we've had are educating children for jobs that no longer exist, and life that no longer exists. And that's become even more emphasized over the last couple of years. So it's this recognition that we need skills to be prepared for all sorts of things in life, and we don't know what they are. You know, who knows what we're going to be facing this time next year, never mind when the children we're working with are growing up there. And I think that's one of the ways in which mindfulness can help there. It's just about helping us to be able to accept whatever's happening and to work with whatever's happening and make better decisions based on how we're interacting with that and how that's having an impact on us. And that's really powerful. So I think there are a number of circumstantial things that are opening doors for mindfulness. And the other thing is mindfulness becoming better known. And that's a plus and a minus there, because mindfulness is becoming more accepted. It's, you know, see articles on it right, left and center, and most of them are generally on the favorable side. But it's about the difference it makes there. It's about the difference you want to make. And I'm going to come back to my analogy. If you give someone a fish, you feed them for a day. If you teach them to fish, you feed them for life. And I think that applies to mindfulness. If you are doing mindful activities from here and there, then they'll be beneficial and people will enjoy them, and it'll be their introduction. It was my introduction. And open your mind to the fact that this actually maybe this has a benefit. But actually, if we teach them how it works and give them a range of practices and embed those in our children, you know, in their school lives, then we've given them a means to go out into whatever the world is offering them. When they grow up, we've given them a means to go out there and to be better able to deal with whatever life throws at them. And life is complicated enough anyway. And I one of the reasons I do this is because I'm so distraught at the world we're creating for these kids. And you know, it's a real drive that I need to do something to help them. I need to do things to help make the world better as well, you know, but also are there things that I can do because of my ability to teach mindfulness? Are there things I can do to help them to cope with whatever is happening?
Thank you, Liz. And in terms of how it sits within kind of wider wellbeing offerings, how do you see that?
I think it's a it's a bit like spider's web. I think it melds into all of those things. It supports some of the other wellbeing offers. I think you can map it against all sorts of things. Lots of people talk about the 5 ways to wellbeing. I don't think that's just a Welsh thing. I know it's in Wales, but it would fit against the 5 ways of wellbeing. There's, connect and think and things that actually support that there. So I think mindfulness underpins. I think it's valid in its own right there, but I think it underpins lots of the other things that we're talking about, whether it's emotional intelligence, whether it's the 5 ways to well-being, whether it's any other of the programs that you're doing. I think it underpins so many of the other aspects of well-being and some of the qualities that we're looking for in terms of our children as they grow up, as ourselves as adults, some of the qualities we need to be able for us to make a difference in the world and to cope first of all, but actually then to make a difference.
Thank you. And so sort of coming back to where we started with this idea, so Wales is you are where you are, and where do you see things going from here?
I think the curriculum is the best thing. I've been around a very long time. This new curriculum and the opportunities it gives are the best thing that have happened in my long education career, if we can make it work. And I'm not saying there's not a bit of a high risk strategy here. When you have something that's this fundamental a change, then there's a lot of work to do, and schools are perhaps not, I don't been under so much pressure that this might be seen and is being seen, I'm sure, by some as an additional pressure. But if we can actually get through that, then we have the opportunity really to do things that meet the needs of children in the 21st century. And that's pretty magic, that actually will give our children, and that is not just from the point of view of health and well-being, but actually some of the ways that the other areas of curriculum are being tackled as well. Really mapped against what is education for in Wales? What do we want our children to be? What are the qualities we want our children to be, rather than what we want them to know? This is not about knowing 1700 French words at a particular age. This is about what qualities do we want them to have? Because who knows what they need to know? What knowledge, body of knowledge they'll need, or what body of knowledge will exist when they come to need it. So I think that is hugely positive. And I think that it will make a real difference to the ethos and the environment and the quality of life in Wales. There's something about the whole philosophy that will make a difference if we can get this to work. And mindfulness, I think, can play a huge part in that as an underpinning set of skills, a bit difficult, but way of being, maybe an underpinning way of being. And as part of the curriculum there, I think, not everyone will do it, but I think quite a lot will pick that up, and that will make a difference to our children growing up and the way they relate to each other. So I see this as being an ongoing, this is not going to change anything in September 2022 when primary schools pick up the curriculum. This is an ongoing journey. It's a marathon, not a sprint. But I think bit by bit, influencer by influencer, ambassador by ambassador, school by school, that I think we will make a real difference to how we live our lives, even though some of the bigger problems will still be a bit intractable.
Thank you. And something else I was wondering around was, you've talked about kind of the children and young people in education, and then we have our whole kind of education communities. So we have all the staff in schools. We also have parents and carers around the school. And do you have any ideas about either from what's already happening or what you could see might happen in the context of the wider education community or school community?
Well, one of the factors that Estin, our inspector, recognised in that review I talked about, when they looked at what works and what makes an impact on pupil well-being, was involvement of parents. And I think from a Mindfulness Wales point of view, one of our missing links is community. When you think children are only in school for 15% of their That's 15% of their waking lives there. Most of their lives are out there in the community, and that's where we can make a real difference. So it's one of the ambitions we've got as Mindfulness Wales to move on that. And I've been part of a group that has been working with our local health board, the Nine Bevan Health University Health Board, where they are looking at preventative strategies. They've got a Mello, MELO website. But as part of the Mello provision, they've actually been offering mindfulness to just openly to members of the community. And that's a huge start, that it's just available for people as part of the preventative, a part of the helping people cope and connect and flourish and empower change. And it's not just about coping, but there are some huge steps forward like that. And schools as hubs of the community, I would hope, as they move forward and they regroup their energy, that actually there might be some work with parents to be done here, because that, working with families might be really influential in helping everybody to cope, connect, flourish and empower change. So I think that whole community level is really important, but there are a number of aspects about that. We need to make it accessible. We probably need to identify who are the influencers, who are the people who are important and ambassadors within communities. There's a whole program, what sorts of mindfulness would be appropriate within communities, and it may be different to what we're doing in the education community. So there's quite a lot to consider there, but I think then we really would be just moving up a gear. So there's some of the sorts of things that we're having discussions on at the moment about how we might be able to just move outwards and influence where children spend so much of their time, which might be in the home or on, within groups of people and communities. And again, it won't be for everybody, but I think it could help an awful lot of people if we can make that available. And I think that behoves us to think about how we make it available. What about the language? What about the accessibility? What about the pattern, the shape of it there? And in Wales, of course, we've got to consider the language. We need to think about the availability in Welsh as well, which we are across all of our other programs there. So there are lots of ways, I think, that would really rebound on what happens in school by looking at the community. So education community is a no-brainer, but I think we're already working on the education community and adults there. I think the wider community would be very rich if we can get to that there and make a huge difference.
Thank you. And is there anything else that you would like to share with our viewers, with our listeners? Any words of inspiration or encouragement before we finish?
Oh, I'd just like to say, I've mentioned that it took me quite a long time to get to this there. And part of my mission, why I'm on the soapbox there, is to enable perhaps more people to have this understanding, this mellowing, maybe this handling things a little bit less directly and incendiarily. I talked about the children handling things differently. Well, that applies to me as well. I just wish I'd known some of this when I was younger. It would have made a lot of difference to handling a lot of relationships and situations, even to being a parent. And I'm not beating myself up about that. I was, I've been okay as a parent there.
I'm sure you were.
There are situations that I might have handled differently if I'd had this understanding. And so I'm on a bit of a mission to perhaps help people a bit younger, get to it a bit younger than I did. That's so if you get the opportunity, go for it.
Thank you, Liz, and thank you so much for your time here, for your encouragement and everything that you've shared with us, but also for the really wonderful work you're doing. It really is fantastic, and I wish you well with continuing to embed it throughout Wales, and hope that more of us can follow.
Well, I just need to say I'm not doing this alone. I mentioned the groups of people, my gangs, the Mindfulness Schools Wales group, the education support group that we've got, and the group of people from all disciplines that make up Mindfulness Wales there. And it is about having people to work with you, and a much greater network of people that are coming together for the online events we have with Mindfulness Wales. So I'm not doing this alone. I'm doing it in partnership as part of a network of people, really rich network of people to whom I'm really grateful, and just are part of the package there. I'm just one of all of those. So thanks to all of them too.
Thank you. So again, just a huge thank you to Liz. You can listen to the talks. They'll be available on the Mindfulness in Schools website. And there are also lots of articles about introducing mindfulness in Wales. There are case studies about schools in Wales. So really hope that you will find those of use and really encouraging in terms of your own journeys.